Radio Big here playing Fall Guys Ultimate Knockout. I kind of want to go over the game, talk about it, talk about kind of the review on it and my thoughts after a couple days of playing it. I'm only level 9. I've only played it for a couple hours. It's kind of a first impressions, I guess, more than in depth. But again, the game doesn't have so much to it that you need a lot of hours. I mean, we've played, me and my friends that did play this, pretty much every mini game within it. But for those who haven't played this is basically a giant, not a giant, it's a collaboration of mini games, kind of like from Mario Party. And the idea is to win them. And as you win, the amount of people who progress is smaller and smaller. Eventually, there's a winner. Each session of the game maybe takes 10, I'd say 10 minutes. 10 is a pretty accurate representation. If you die, of course, you just leave. Or if you and all your friends die, you can just leave. So that helps shorten the amount of time in the games. Um, so basically, the entire inspiration was taken from Takeshi's Castle, a Japanese game show that did exactly this. I mean, they're very similar events to the things that were in Takeshi's Castle, very obstacle course-esque things. So they took that inspiration, made it into a game. I thought was brilliant, personally, because I love Takeshi's Castle. I love the dub of it done for English called MXC, Most Extreme Elimination Challenge. Um, I think it was great as a concept, but the problem I have with it was the actual execution. We played this for maybe about 4 hours straight. Now, I'll of course first talk about the initial release. The initial release was plagued with massive server problems in that basically all of Steam crashed. All of Steam basically crashed. The moment this game came out, they had way more people than they anticipated. Now that in and of itself, I have it's hard for me to forgive per se, because the problem is they gave this game out for a ton of streamers and gave a ton of keys to streamers and such like that. So they kind of had an idea what they were going to deal with based on retention rate and stuff, and retention rate, amount of viewers for the subscribers, and then other games who had done similar concepts, look to Valorant or stuff like that, where numbers are readily available for how many viewers were watching this content compared to the amount of keys compared to the amount of actual players at the end. Um, so it's really hard for me to just kind of forgive this and be like, oh, well, they couldn't possibly have known. They should have had a pretty good idea, and given that they ended up basically crashing all of Steam with how many people they had on the overload, it's pretty nuts. But I don't take big points off for that. I mean, that's unfortunate, and I think what it will do in the long term is probably actually hurt them, because the amount of people who probably played on these first couple days, the amount that are going to stay that would have stayed is definitely going to be lower than it should have been. Because definitely a lot of people who are going to have tried it on the first couple days are going to say, well, this is dumb. I mean, I could not even play the game. And for a game that doesn't have much depth to it already, it's a bit of a shot in the face for themselves there, which is a damn shame, because this game obviously relies on player base. You need to have a large player base in order to have these large matches of 50 people plus per game. So when you lose a lot of your initial players right out of the gate like that, it's definitely going to be a problem moving forward. And I foresee that being a problem. Oh fuck. I foresee that being a problem for this game, moving forward into the later stages, maybe after a month or 2 months. Now that can be counteracted with the fact that you can add more games, you can add more concepts and designs to it, and more styles. Again, the minigames themselves, there's not many, so they could add more of them to keep it fresh, keep it interesting. But what I also want to talk about is based on the initial launch. I'll focus on that first. The initial launch, the first things is they crash the server, but also stuff like this that I'm looking at right here. I hit exit. What it's supposed to do with this screen is knock out all the people that were eliminated and just show you who's left. The game is extremely buggy, to say the least. A lot of times it fixes itself if you just wait, but sometimes it doesn't, and this is taking a bit long. I'll maybe give it. All right, there we go. Yeah, it can be extremely buggy and crash all the time. Even in ways that aren't the server's fault. There just seem to be a couple of bugs here and there within the game, and then just screens that don't load properly. Games themselves, sometimes you'll have it where you're literally just staring at the finish line while it's loading. so you don't know if you crashed or if the game's gonna even continue. That was a big problem. Me and my friends were playing. We wanted to, get in, play some games as friends. We'd get in, and as a group of four, maybe three of us would say, "All right, I'm in," and one guy'd be like, I'm out. I got dropped." And so maybe about for the first hour, I'd say that was about 75% of games where we just got dropped. One person at least got dropped. We had to mess around for quite a while. Again, hour to 2 hours was just messing with this, hoping that nobody got dropped. And when only one person did, we kind of had to take that as a win and say, well, only one person got dropped, so we'll keep it. And just kind of have to play where one person was stuck watching, which is a real shame. I didn't even get to watch, actually. I'm sorry. When you get dropped, you have nothing. You have to go back to the main menu, and so you don't even get to see what's happening on your friend's side. You're just sitting there waiting and talking to them, hoping that it finishes in a fairly quick manner, which is a real shame. This is suicide. Because, obviously being a completely party-based game, when you aren't able to play with your friends or party or group that you want to be playing with, you kind of feel cheated. You kind of feel like this was not the game you paid for. So, I mean, I definitely feel like that was a real bummer. And I know a couple friends of mine that will probably not play this game anymore just because that initial experience was so underwhelming in that regard. So, you hate to see that, and I really hope they get their shit together moving forward because, as I said, this relies on having a lot of people. Without that, it's going to be a real tough struggle moving forward because you're going to get games where it's only like 15 people per game or whatever if you don't have a huge lobby base. Or queue times will be forever. You kind of have to choose one of the two. And it's atrocious. So that's not something you want to see coming into a game on day two. You shouldn't have to say that. So that's a real bummer. But let's assume that these things are not predominant issues moving forward and that they fix this. What are we looking at for the game? Well, as I said, there's mini games and you play as you go through. They're going to change. Then again, as I've started this video, it's been the first round twice, and it was the same first round game on both games. So that's a little telling. That's very telling, actually, of what I'm going to be talking about here. You're going to see the same games extremely often. There's maybe 15 games total throughout the entirety of the game. And I mean, you're dealing with a start of 50, so there's anywhere from 3 to 5 rounds, or even 6 per game. So that's quite a few rounds when you only have 15 games, I'd say. Maybe there's 20. I didn't actually count them. I'd say it's probably closer to 15, though, if I had to take a guess. As well, on launch for the first 2 days, which is when I mostly played this, several of the games were limited and restricted to not be on because they were overloading the servers. So we were down to maybe 10 games, which was a real bummer because it got very repetitive very quickly, very uninteresting very quickly when you started to immediately see strategies for how to do each thing. Which, while that's going to exist, you shouldn't have that after maybe an hour or two of playing where you already know, oh, this is what we're going to do to win. So that's a bit disappointing. But now, even with all the games in, mostly it feels like it's still extremely repetitive. You're gonna see these games quite often, so be prepared to. I mean, if you have a short attention span or if you're very bored very quickly, this will not be a game for you because you're not going to get a lot of value out of how little there is to it. You're going to basically see, oh, I've already seen this before. Why can't I see something new? Is something you're basically going to say a lot to yourself, maybe your friends. Because again, even if you're playing with friends, that only makes this so acceptable that you're seeing the same thing over and over every time you play. And when the games are so short that, maybe I did the first round there like 10 times within an hour, even more maybe if we're really doing poorly. You're going to see that same flipper game maybe like 30% of all games. And I mean, sometimes it could feel like even more. There were a couple games I know that I felt like me and my friends had maybe 50% of the time. And as someone who did footage and is reviewing the footage, it's around 50% for some of these events. So it's extremely disappointing to see. that so many of the games get repeated so frequently because it takes away from the whole atmosphere of just it's quick, it's immediate, just bam bam boom, get through games, and you're having some fun, you're having some laughs, and it's just a good time. So you really hate to kind of take away that vibe with it's this one again, or oh I hate this one, but we keep seeing it. So it's a little unfortunate that's a huge detriment, I would say, and I think that would probably keep a lot of people from playing this game. Which is why I think that's just another key issue is to I don't think this game will have the life cycle that it hopes to have moving forward. Which again, damn shame. It's a fun concept that should have taken its time. I feel like they'd spent too much time working on the marketing, getting this out to streamers and hyping it up that this is big, this is Takeshi's Castle, but a video game. They put it in so many streamers' hands, they put a big spotlight on it. Great idea, good for marketing. But the problem was the game itself wasn't quite there yet. I feel like maybe it needed 3 or 4, even a couple more, maybe even 5 more games at least, in order to really flesh it out as a whole. So, you really hate to see that. Getting through the game, and when you are having a good run with your friends and you do start to get to the end, there are several games where I feel like they're very stressful, they're very intense, they're very interesting. And I'd say that's the rarity, unfortunately, again. There was one game where a tail tags, basically a couple people have tails, and you have to try and snag the tail from someone and, run away, don't get your tail stolen yourself. Whoever has tails at the end moves on. Simple concept, extremely fun in the solo play. I remember I was yelling with my friends and we were screaming. We're like, "Oh my god! Oh, I gotta get away! Oh, last second dive!" It's very free form, very fun, very stressful, which is again adds to the fun. But then there's the exact same game, and then they just did it's teams now, which is so much less interesting because it's just there's just a bunch of guys running around, and some of them will grab tails, and some of them have it. It's like it feels like there's just less going on because it just becomes another game like the one I just played with the balls, where it's there's a number at the top, your team's number is lower, so you're losing. Moving on. Like it's very I don't quite have a word for it. It's not fulfilling. It's not fulfilling to see, oh, my team is doing well, or oh, my team is doing poorly. Because, like, if you have a tail in the team version, you could be the only person with a tail in your entire team. There's nothing more you can do. You have a tail. You count for the point for your team, and you can't have more than one. So you're kind of just standing there watching as you go, oh, well, I guess my team's just doomed. That's not interesting. The team games are fine. You can have a couple team games, but about 50% of games in this are team games, which really takes away from that when you're trying, like, oh yeah, I'm doing so well, I'm having a good run. Oh, I can't believe I made it all the way like to round 3 or 4 with, maybe your other friends are eliminated. You're like, I can go all the way. And you just get a team game and you feel like, well, this feels like the teams were completely stacked. It was a 7-0 blowout in soccer. Wasn't even close. You don't feel like you had a lot of input on that. You kind of feel like I've even seen it where it does a team game where there's 2 teams and it does a 4v5, which is unbelievable. It's just straight up one team has an extra 20% more bodies, 25% more bodies. The other team has 20% less than the other team. That doesn't feel fun. You don't feel like when you lost that you had, a great chance in winning. You were fighting an uphill battle from the start. Why would they let it do that? Not be that it has to be an even number for even teams or divisible by 3 for 3 teams moving on. But apparently that's not always the case, which baffling and unfun in my opinion. I think this is a fun game that's just so plagued by these small issues that they really take away from the experience itself. It should just be a quick, fast run, fun little game. And I mean, again, when you're in it and you're having fun and you're playing it, it can be an extremely fun experience where it's just crazy and wild and goofy, and you're just trying to do the thing, like trying to grab these eggs here, and it's, oh, well, I better go steal some from another team. Oh, we need the points. It can be really crazy, but it can also just start to feel like it's a gang-up game where whoever's in last will gang up on second last, and whoever's in first might as well also gang up on second last, because then you have everybody basically bodying one team out of the game. Like, you could look at this. Look at the mess this is. Of just trying to screw over blue. It's such a bodying that you just start to feel like, as one of the players on the blue team right now, you're like, I feel like I'm just getting completely bodied, and then the red team's over there, they got no points. It's just, chaos is fine and all, but this isn't chaos in an interesting sense. This is chaos just where it's physics being really wacky. Like, the physics are not great for this game. What's going to make you fall over, what's going to make you lose the thing you're holding, and what isn't, can kind of feel really up in the air. So while I get there's some basic strategy and stuff to this, it can be a little bit underwhelming. I mean, red has 3 points. That was not interesting. This is a complete blowout. I could stand still for the rest of this game, and it wouldn't even matter, just because they have 3. The amount of points they would need to bring that back, and without us doing anything, is ungodly. So, I mean, the games are there. The concept is brilliant, but it's plagued by so many problems. And, I mean, there's several games where when you're at the finals, you feel like these are just not fun games to be your final game. There's one where it's basically the hexagons are falling as you step on them, and there's like 10 layers or so, so you want to be the last one alive. There's some cool strategies where you want to try and stay at the top or go to the bottom and create a big hole for people to fall into. Several ways to play it, very fun. Then there's one where it's basically a very basic obstacle course, where it feels like if you got through the first initial glump of people first, you kind of are just far and away safe. Where it's like it's going to be very hard for someone to catch up with you, and the obstacle course is so easy that as long as you're in first, you shouldn't have too much of a problem really winning. Of course, there's exceptions to the rule, but at the end of the day, it's fairly simple, and it doesn't feel like that one has a lot of input, which is a damn shame. Because again, you kind of want the finals to feel like a big stressful moment of, oh my god, can I win, can I not? Anything could happen. But unfortunately, it really doesn't. It kind of just feels like you're getting bodied one way or another. Again, the Hexa one, fine for that. There's a couple others. The tail tag one that's solo, it can feel okay. It sometimes can feel a little bit janky, again, because the physics of what will make you fall over and what won't. I mean, again, it's fine, but is fine really what you want for the finals? Not really. I mean, look, would I recommend the game? Probably not. No, I probably wouldn't. I don't think there's enough here. I think for maybe if you find it on sale for $10, yeah, definitely. It is a great $10 pickup. You and your friends can come back to it when you're just got like where you don't want to be doing anything that's too long. You want to just have a nice quick little game. Then it's perfect. It's a great, perfect, quick experience. What it's not good for is a day of play with your friends. You're not going to spend hours playing this game. Hell, you're barely going to spend 2 hours before you're already sick of seeing certain games, which says a lot, especially when you're trying to play with friends. You'd hate to have that be the downer where it's, oh, well, I've seen this. I know this. I've seen this many times. That's unfortunate, but that's what it is, so I'm not going to try and say that it's not. It's not a bad game. It's just not a fun game. It has its moments, definitely, but it's way too repetitive for me to say this is a fun game that you should definitely pick up and play. That's my thoughts. You can argue with me if you want. I mean, I love to see other perspectives on things. I would love to know if you think otherwise, but yeah, that's my initial thoughts, and this is Radio Big. Over and out.